This is So Long Too Long, a true-to-life recounting of a band that, despite their very best efforts, seemed destined to break into the big time if they could only overcome one hurdle, themselves. If they weren't quite four lads who shook the world, they certainly gave their postcodes a tremble. My name is Matty, and in episode 1, along with my mates Rowie and Steve, we detailed how and when we formed the greatest band in the world, the Albany, and the grand plans we drew up on day 1. That was the easy bit. The next step was putting it into action. In an act of determination that was not too often replicated in the subsequent years, we got straight down to things. There were nations to conquer, scenes to demolish, and we didn't have a second to waste. The naming of the band was a relatively straightforward and typically half-arsed affair. We met in a beer garden and tossed a few ideas around. The only serious suggestion I can recall is Rowie's idea of Janus. Now, naming after ourselves after the two-faced goddess who can simultaneously see the future and the past wasn't a bad idea, and we weren't wholly averse to it, but it somehow just didn't ring right. We couldn't picture ourselves saying it out loud on stage, and we thought it sounded a bit more mystic and ambiguous than we knew we'd be. The other suggestions I can recall came from Steve. Mercifully, we vetoed his idea of calling ourselves the Cunts, or more colourfully, the Crazy Gang of Cunts, crazy or the K. But eventually, otherwise bereft of inspiration, we looked to the heavens, or at least the sign above the door, and simply opted for the name of the public house we found ourselves in. We're called the Albany now. Sound. Job done. So that is essentially how, no great revelation, we formed in a pub called the Albany, and we called our band the Albany. But we didn't, on that very, very first night, we didn't go, let's call ourselves the Albany. It was just the band, wasn't it?
The band, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite simple.
Yeah, we're in our band, whatever, but we weren't like, we're the Albany. We had everything else. We had our manifesto. We had our going to take on the world, but we didn't have our name at first. So I think we just blagged to people, we're in a band. What do you call that?
I think we struggled with the band name, really, didn't we?
We did, actually, yeah.
Really tough to like.
It is.
Because everything sounds ridiculous when you say it the first time.
There's no good band name ever.
No.
It's if the band's good, then you just accept the Jag name.
Yeah.
And then you go, brilliant name.
Yeah.
But for us, I remember struggling. So once I wrapped my head around the idea of actually being in a band, then you're trying to be a bit artsy, whatever. And in college, we were reading Shakespeare. I don't even know what play it was, but there was a character or whatever. A line was by Janus. No. I was like, Janus, what's that? And it's like Roman two-faced God. When you see the little asterisks on the page, what's that? And Roman two-faced God. I was like, well, I ain't got nothing else in my ass pocket, so I'll float that one out. And
that's a good place. That's where it should have stayed, Janus.
Yeah, close to the anus. But as soon as you float it out, then you just go, well, that's just anus with a J on the front. So, nah, we're not going to go for that.
I can remember you suggesting it, and I remember, it wasn't as if I went, no, sod off. It's not like Steve's suggestion, with a cunt.
I stand by it.
Say what you see.
But with Janus, I do remember, I don't love it, but not strong enough, because I didn't have any idea either, so I was like...
He's trying, but...
Yeah, and I haven't got anything better. And we threw a few around, and I think we kind of imagined saying it on stage, and I think, again... linking back to the last episode, Janus, we were like, it's just not rootsy enough. Again, what's that mean? I don't know, but it's just not rootsy enough. It has,
too fancy.
Yeah, I think that's what. I think we were.
Have you seen the state of us?
I think that was a big part of it. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure this is a theme that will emerge time and time again the more we talk, but. We were keen not to get ideas above our station. We were keen to just stay dirt in the ground. You know what I mean? We were like, we don't want to sound pretentious at all. We don't want to sound, pretentious as if that is pretentious. But anything was pretentious if it wasn't the Lars at that time. So Janus was all right, and then I do remember Steve saying the cunts and go, no, okay. What about? Oh yeah, the crazy gang of cunts. We're like, oh Steve, fuck off, and he's like, no, crazy has got a K. So
Again, I stand by it. All I remember, again, and this is like a theme, I think, for us, but definitely when I think back for myself, that I got really militant about it. Like, I didn't have Thatcher to hate. And
yeah.
like, I didn't really understand what they were doing, but I just thought, yeah, they're all right, whatever. So I had the Albany that used to serve me underage, so I was like religiously like in love with that place.
Yeah.
And then the Lars, which was like fanatic about. So then when we went around gigs and we like, we're the Albany, or heard any other band name, I was straight away, they're shite.
Yeah.
Just
that's
based
it. Yeah.
on the name.
Yeah. What
And
are
then,
the?
really, it's like you're named after the pub lads in Old Swan.
I know,
So,
and that's something that would come back to haunt us many years later, but that's for a later episode. But yeah, so what are the band names? Like there was Cup, wasn't that, who Paul Barrow left the Jimmy Savile Experience for? What other bands were around at the time? But again, Steve's spot on, any name, anything remotely creative, we were just like, nah, not having that.
But it still happens now, won't it?
What's that?
No, like it still happens now, doesn't it? With like band names, because there ain't a good one. There isn't a good band name. Like the perfect one is, ironically, like the Lars. But like aside from that, like there's nothing out there. There's no point even. I don't know why it should just be called The Band. And then see how far you get.
Yeah.
Until like, oh no, you need a name now. You need a name just so we can like categorize or whatever, alphabetical order. Maybe like the K in Crazy Cunts. Like K's like in the middle of the alphabet. So that might have helped like on like the filing system.
The Maybes was a good name, actually. I'll give them that bit, because I like the way they used to do the spray paint round town, didn't they? Around like Old Swan and Kenny. Yeah. Just the question mark, and then the Maybes was but again, that's because they were a good band and they were clearly sound lads and they were similar ethos to us, except they actually had the shit together. But I remember when we were out, I remember, bizarrely, I don't know why this sticks in my head, but I was really stricken with hay fever. It was the first summer I'd ever had hay fever, and like my eyes were streaming, and I just remember like, looking up and seeing the Albany. I was like, why didn't we just call ourselves the Albany? I remember like no one was crazy on it. It's not as if we were like, that's it, he's done it. It was just very much like, about the Albany, and like short of any other. Yeah. I was just like, sound. It's one less thing
it's
to worry about.
It's better than Anus and the Crazy Cunts.
The next stage was finding somewhere to rehearse. Handily, in Stee, we had 3 vital components for this: a drum kit, an attic bedroom, and 2 extremely patient, loving parents who let us practice up there of a Saturday afternoon after my shift at Woolworths had finished. Steve's attic bedroom was quickly rechristened Bucko's Bar, on account of the sheer volume of ale that worked its way up Steve's ladder. Most of this was obtained from the off-licence at the end of Steve's Road, ran by a character we referred to as Groovy Gary. A thoroughly downbeat man, Groovy Gary was decisively ungroovy. He was rakishly thin and adorned oversized glasses that made his eyes appear huge against his tiny head, giving his face a vaguely amphibian look, in addition to wearing faded Metallica and Iron Maiden t-shirts, which were 2 sizes too big for him and hung off his bony frame against skin that was so white it was practically translucent. Stood behind plexiglass, Groovy Gary was the proprietor of a bizarre store that seemed to suck any outside light inwards into a dusty, barely stocked emporium, selling beers and ciders that I have never heard of before and never have since. Our tipple of choice, no doubt due to its cheap pricing, was a beer that came in a baby-sick brown can called Viborg Pills. In writing this, I've tried to find any information on Viborg Pills, and other than one grainy picture on Google Images, cannot find any reference to it, making me question whether it ever actually existed at all. Such was Groovy Gary's. So do you remember Groovy Gary?
Yeah, Groovy Gary was like a staple in the area, wasn't he? Like I think we were going to, and we had like a mate who he didn't even look 18. He used to get served. And he used to buzz off us all because he used to get like served, didn't he? It was always crap ale. and like we'd all throw in like £2,
Oh God.
and then we'd go and we'd be like, go into Groovies and just get like a couple of cans of like Viborg pills or
Carbon white
whatever, like
cider.
carbon white cider, and it was always the pits. And he always came out with a blue, I think it was like a blue bag, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
just
yeah.
like
Proper old
nondescript
school.
blue bag of ale, and we went to the corner and did what we used to do. But he was always there, and I can't remember where the nickname came from. I think it was from our next door neighbour, and he said, like, I remember him referring to the off license as Groovy Gary's,
Oh,
and
is
I
that right?
I think so, yeah, and it just stuck in my head, and I was like, he's the most ungroovy person ever. But it's that genius of a nickname.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And then, oh God, we used to. I remember, God, I was a bit of a wimp, and I probably still am. But I remember when we were about 15, 16, because his shop, it's gone now. I think it's a tattoo parlor.
shop, innit, now, yeah.
But it opened out straight onto a main road. And I remember I was on the other side because I was too chicken to do it. I remember seeing Cody running past it and just lobbing a stink bomb in there. I just remember it. I remember watching you two lob it in there and leg it on. I just take it and go, for fuck's sake.
poor fella.
I
Honest to
know.
God.
Well, to be honest, I'm glad he's got a name, because I was thinking about Groovy Gary, but to me, it was just like a Slender Man type, like, fucking figure, because, like Matty said before, like, that offie just sucked in all the light,
Yeah.
but at the end of the perspex fucking corridor was just this shadowy, gangly figure, and like I say, like a Slender Man even, like, if something happened in that shop and the police say, gives a description, I wouldn't have had a clue what to say. I would have just said, like, an 8-foot shadow. That's all it would have been. That's all it would have been.
It was one of those places where like the shelves would have like one tin of beans. Like a big long shelf,
It was like a pantry. Wearing an offie.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And with like, I get a tiny black and white TV, and
That's what we watched the match on.
yeah, it might well have been, yeah. I remember one time walking out and one of us shouting, "Cheers, Groovy," and we were halfway across the main road and we just heard, "Knobheads."
I remember outside that shop, I was called a biffhead. I've never been called a biffhead since. And like the person who said it was about 8, he just said, "You biffhead." And,
Didn't we genuinely think about that as a band name at one point?
Yeah, the Biffheads.
We did.
I did like that name. I did want to thank the 8-year-old once left, but yeah, Biffhead.
Biffhead. Fantastic. So that was that, and Viborg pills was our choice. It's so bizarre that like we spoke about this many times over the years, that it's just, was it? I mean, it was a thing, but you just can't find any information on it at all.
No,
Didn't
I've,
have, like-
I've went on the dark web trying to get a can of it and everything.
Didn't it have
like-
cricket stumps on the fingio?
No, it had like a weird ship. It was like this cream coloured can, wasn't it? Like this
Yeah.
off-white.
Yeah.
And I think it had a ship on it and like really like bright red writing that said like Viborg and then the premium pills or something. There's nothing premium
God.
about it, was it? It was
Exclusive
bits.
pills.
Yeah.
So that was
But
But that fueled many an afternoon in Bucko's bar, as we called it. Now that was a den of iniquity, wasn't it?
That was like everyone scraped the fiver together, got the blue bag from Groovies. But it was either Viborg pills or out of date Labatt ice.
It was.
Yeah.
God, yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd be there, just to add to the glamour, I'd be there in my Woolies uniform, because I'd just come straight from me shift and Allerton Road Woolies.
Well, being in the band by this point, I was glad to get my membership into Bucko's bar via the Labatt's Ice or whatever.
Well stocked and thirsty, we would haul our cargo up into Bucko's bar and get to work. I'd bring a tape dictaphone to record everything for posterity, and we'd plug our replica guitars into tiny amps and go for it. We didn't have any microphones, so I'd essentially have to shout to be heard, which meant that I quickly developed a style of singing that persists to this day, that very often just feels like me trying to shout in tune. In truth, I can't recall the very first practice, and from a distance, many of these afternoon sessions now appear to me dreamlike, blaring into each other as we guzzled whatever cat piss we could scrape together the pennies for. One thing I can recall is that we were often not alone, and for most of these momentous gatherings, we were joined by our mate Bob. Now, I feel I must talk about Bob for a minute here. Bob was in the same classes as Rowie and our other mate Cody at school, but had jacked sixth form in as his family owned a scaffolding company and he was guaranteed work there. Bob was and remains a bit of an enigmatic character. His name wasn't actually Bob, but most people knew of him for two things he possessed: an ironclad liver and a huge knob, both of which we saw plenty of over the years. None of us quite knew exactly what Bob did within the scaffolding firm, but he always had money, wads of cash that he carried around in the shorts he wore whatever the weather. Bob would bankroll us time after time in our quest for ale, and he would easily drink us and any other grown man under several tables before simply vanishing. We wouldn't hear from him throughout the next week, but then he'd turn up for the next Saturday sessions as if nothing had happened, without any explanation for his disappearing act the week before. He didn't play any instruments and would rarely pass comment on the music we played, but Bob was most definitely in the inner circle of the Albany.
It always just like ended up this like, so like we'd come up my ladder into the loft, like a big bag of cans, and then there'd be Bob sitting there with his shorts on, even if it was like
He's just waiting.
-4.
He's waiting for us.
He'd give us the money.
You must have slept there, didn't you feel him?
Every time we were playing, I'm playing on little 10-watt amps, and then that'd go on for about 3 hours, and then we'd put the Lars on. And turn the lights off.
Inevitably. Yeah, that's how it go. I remember one time Cody passing out and we just put all our empties around him, like a chalk outline of a body on the floor. But yeah, Bob was just there, man. Bob was, I mean, we're still in contact with Bob, still love him very much, but I still, he's Bob, isn't he? He's an enigma. Like, we didn't know what he did. Enigma. He'd vanish and then he'd turn back the next week with a black eye, or, oh yeah, I lost my shoes. What do you mean you lost your shoes? Just shake his head, and you just knew. You knew, yeah. And you knew not to ask anymore.
And he was always in shorts, always wearing shorts.
Yeah. Whenever you try to explain him and say, like, he had venues, as a 17, 18-year-old, the caveat,
yeah,
he had shorts behind the bar of a number of bars in town, which is mental. So, like, whatever bar you were in, and when the bouncers start to shift, 6, 7 o'clock, he'd go over to the barmaid and say, "Gives me kecks." And then he wouldn't get kicked out for the rest of the night.
And he funded, to be fair, he funded a lot of our behaviour, because he was the only one that had a job. Like, he was in school, but he always had like a roll of money. He never had a wallet. There's always like a wad, and it's just out of scaffolding.
He was, he was our benefactor. Like, he fueled many a Saturday session. Like, and that's our Bob. He was our roadie that never did any work. It's worth pointing out at this point, we didn't have a bass player, but this was something that simply didn't bother us. It wasn't as if we were making a conscious stylistic decision here. We weren't trying to be the White Stripes or the Doors. We just didn't have a bassist, and wouldn't have a bassist until we had a bassist. Regardless of this, we spent the first few weeks getting to grips with the no doubt soon-to-be classics I'd penned. The first song we spent our time honing was called Lightning Struck Twice, although we referred to it as Licking Wood, due to Steve's habit of renaming our songs with sometimes vaguely, sometimes brutally explicit sexual references. Most of these references would initially fly over my naive head, and as a result, Steve would take great delight in explaining them to me as I reacted with horror or bemusement. Steve was essentially a walking edition of the Urban Dictionary, way ahead of his time, and was nothing if not a trailblazer. Lightning Struck Twice, or Licking Wood, was a song that featured me playing harmonica, and on reflection was actually quite a decent song. It was a somewhat more mature song compared to the other songs I was writing at the time, but suffered from a malaise that persisted across most of my songs. It went on forever. We didn't care at this point though. We were just made up we could get through 5 minutes without falling apart. The chords were simple, which was handy, as when Rowie told us on that fateful first night he'd just got a guitar and we instantly decided to form a band, we willingly overlooked the fact that it was his first guitar and he was still getting to grips with his fretboard. But there are fewer forces in the world as strong as adolescent arrogance, and overlooking all of this, we ploughed on and quickly felt like we'd done it. We'd completed our first proper song. Surely the rest just had to fall into place. So as I say in the narrative, like I can't remember the first one. I wish I could, but because we were doing it every Saturday for a good while, they've all kind of blurred into one. But the early prackies, they would follow a pattern. We'd meet in the Albany, have a pint there, go to Groovy Gary's, usually with Bob's money, bring the ale up, and then we'd start playing. Now, at that point, I probably had about I probably told Rowie I had 4 albums, but I only had about 4 or 5 finished songs. But we did have to grapple with the fact that Rowie, like, you couldn't play guitar at that point, and like our arrogance was only going to get us so far.
Oh, so like you're saying you had 4 or 5 songs, I had about 4 or 5 chords. So we might have been all right if you used them 5 chords. Yeah,
probably did. Like, but yeah. But I mean, they were magic days. I have got a pile of tapes somewhere that I reckon I've got some recordings of those early days. But like, what's your recollection of those days?
Well, my recollection of them is like, obviously, like, I was coming up to like Buckles Bar for the first time, so I was like, it was nerve-wracking, to be honest. And I'm like, I only know like these few chords, whatever. Like, but I think the week before, like, Teenage Kicks, and I remember like we did that for a fair bit.
Teenage Kicks?
Yeah, for about 20 minutes.
Did we?
I was like, if I just keep on playing these chords, it's Teenage Kicks. But like coming up to your room, Steve, that was like, like every like late teenager getting into music. That it was just a dream. Like all the posters on the wall, and like you used to have like top 10s all printed out. Your own top 10s. Like top 10 albums. It was amazing. It was an amazing place to be. Like so many records and CDs. Like you just it was. We were all in our elements. Well, I feel like it was boss to like start being a part of that. Like as a band member, but even more like as a mate. They were great days. They really were great days, and like the foundations were laid for like the band there. And like, as much as the Albany was the perfect band name and the place to form a band, the best way and the best place to like hone everything was upstairs in your loft. It was brilliant.
And it was equally as daft. Now, knowing what we know now and the years that followed after it, Rowie's spot on. We had to form in the Albany because it was a proper dive of a boozer, no glamour, and we had to cut our teeth in Steve's bedroom because it was just daft. It was a loft conversion, but there was no like extension. So I'm small, but even I'd bang my head. And do you remember, Robbie? We used to get our hair caught in like the wooden beams.
Had a central beam running that. Like, I'm no like wakey, whatever. But you had a central beam, and you and Matty like. It was no danger to use, but Matty's hair made up for like the height. But like I'd be crouched over, and this central exposed beam would just pull out hairs from your head as you're practicing. Yeah. But like it must have looked like we were a grunge band if you took a photo, because we're all just like staring down and like bang into it, whatever. But yeah, it was a death trap because I don't think it had like a barrier covering the hatch.
Well, my dad like built it with his mate, and like I remember the reason it was so dark when it's got the one window is because my dad went, we won't stick it on the front because the council might spot it and like want to inspect it. So like that was basically like the whole job was like, we won't do that.
There's never going to be 4 lads up here sweating playing guitars. We only need this 1 point of ventilation. We're all right here.
God, yeah. And I forgot about all your top 10s and the vinyl, because we're saying it now, vinyl blasé, but like, you know, back then vinyl, no one was playing vinyl, so you know so it was cool. Like me and you had a vinyl player, but like it felt very cool to come into that place where you had all your vinyl covers on the wall. I mean, I know it's dead commonplace now, but it was spot on. And then there's it was your stash of your blue DVDs that we got from the Albany.
Remember when that was a thing? When someone used to come around the pub and And I was like, oh, you'd like pretend and look at Die Hard or whatever it was, or whatever.
Die Hard.
I don't know why that came into my head.
Die very
That
hard.
wasn't a new film, was it?
Die
But like
Hard
you go
on.
to it, oh, yeah, that's it. And they'd be like, let's have a look at the other stuff, lad.
I've humoured
We've
you.
played this game long enough.
Yeah, but what's brilliant is that we're making it sound like this really cool space, but like in the middle of it was like your clothes rail.
Dirty socks.
yeah, that type of thing. Yeah. And
I just remember having that great poster behind me drum kit, and we went to see the Coral, didn't we? Like maybe a year or so before that, and the Coral signed at the Zootons before they got signed. They just had all kinds of like signatures and like some random ones from security that tried to kick us out.
yeah.
I don't think it was. That's why I say like it's quite intimidating because like you just did like the bullshit spiel of like hooking me in and all that. Yeah, go ahead, and then you go up to the room and it looks the part, like, and you've got all this like gear signed by like active band members, like and like the Liverpool like music scene. It's like, oh, it's, like these know what they're talking about, you know. Like, let's see how far we can blag this, you know.
20 minutes later into Teenage Kicks.
Great, this, isn't it?
So the first song I remember working on, because it only came to me like about 20 minutes before coming on my way to the studio here, was that Lightning Struck Twice was the first proper song Steve had heard of ours, because the song's in the Jimmy Savile Experience, which for new listeners we didn't know at the time. For the songs for what became the Albany, I think this was the first one you heard. My mum and dad, all my family had gone on holiday, but I had an A-level, so I couldn't go. But inevitably we had a massive house party in my mum's, and we got my guitar out, and I remember playing Lightning Struck Twice, and it's got a harmonica bit in it, but I didn't have a harmonica brace, so I think I asked you, Steve, to like hold it up next to my mouth, and I was playing it at like 3 a.m. in my mum's, and I remember you being like, "Fuck yeah, yes, that song's boss, that song's boss." So I think that's why it was the first one I brought, and also the chords were just C and F, wasn't it? It was like dead. It was dead easy. I think there was an E minor in there somewhere.
Yeah. My only memory of that song is your harmonica going through like an amp, and my head used to shake.
yeah.
It always used to be right next to me head, and then this harmonica would just go like full throttle through the amp. It had lungs, like, honestly, just like right down here. And,
But like,
so that's
like I
the
said
reason.
before, like you used to like blagging head, so I'm turning up there and like some like 18-year-old kids are whipping out an harmonica, and I'm like, what the hell is this? What is some Delta blues going on here? Get on this, and now do you know CNF?
Yeah.
Vital that you know this.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna play this for 3 hours straight.
Yeah,
Bob and Cody are gonna just sit there and drink all that Labatt Ice with fireball girls.
I probably
It ain't going any colder.
all my songs were about 3 hours in those days. Oh, and then there's another verse. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, another verse. Yeah, and then there's another instrumental break. I don't know, I just couldn't end the song, but
I reckon that's our finished single. It's only 11 minutes long.
yeah, to the radio edit that. But it felt like that. I felt like a proper song, didn't it? I remember teaching it to Rowie, and happily the chords were quite easy. But I remember quite quickly thinking, we've lasted there. We've lasted like the 5 minutes. Friggin' hell, Matty. We've lasted the 5 minutes there. It felt like, we can do it now.
Oh, I got through without like falling apart, and it's like, oh, I think I might have like passed the test there, you know. So it's like, like glad to get through that, the longest 5 minutes of my life. But yeah, on the other side of it, like you say, it was a song at the end of the day. It was a song, like it would hold up now. It was just mad that it's just 3 lads and you're playing harmonica, which I can't stress is just dead weird at the time.
Yeah.
It just literally came from nowhere. Like you're talking about roots and all, like what type of roots? Fucking Scouse roots or like... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm on board by this point.
Yeah, but of course, it wasn't called... The song was called Lightning Struck Twice, but Steve rechristened it as Licking Wood, and that set a precedent for every pracky. I've got a new song, and before I'd even say what it was, Steve give some horrendous... We had... I hope my mum's not listening. We had Licking Wood, we had Cream Pie, Which I did. I just thought you were talking about a pastry product, and you explained what a cream pie was, and I nearly wept. What else did we have? We had Snowball, which I don't want to even think about. Deep Throat Frenzy.
More on the nose, that one. Well, I think we didn't even have any gigs lined up, so these were just for our recollection. Like, these are the names of the songs, or all this filth, just so we could write it down on a bit of paper for practice. Not necessarily a set list, but by the time like you're building up like your repertoire, it just looked like that Moody Bluey list that the DVD fella would have had. You know what I mean?
And I think
I don't want Die Hard. I want Lick and Wood now.
I think for all like me bravado at the time and all, I think I was genuinely like nervous of kind of saying, because we had no microphones, you couldn't hear what the lyrics were because I was just shouting because we had no microphone and we didn't know how to sort volume. In fact, we never learned how to sort our volume out. Everything was just up to 10.
Well, I'm surprised that we had even like 2 guitar amps, because my guitar was part of a starter bundle. So I definitely had my gear. I had my guitar, my 3 guitar strap, 3 plex, and a 10-watt amp.
Yeah.
So when I'm bringing this to like the armory, I'm surprised we had 2 amps, to be honest. I'm surprised we had the gear to practice.
Yeah. I had a guitar, an SG copy, I got for one of my birthdays, and it must have been a 15-watt PV. I don't know. So it was shite anyway, but yeah.
Yours had effects on, didn't it?
It had
I say effects.
It had a reverb dial, yeah. I felt like I was the man. Yeah, but no more than reverb, because that's not rootsy. But I think
that was one of the things with your guitar, Matty. You couldn't tune it because it was broken. You had to use a spanner and like.
Oh man.
So we were looking at you doing that and thinking.
We're saying you there, like your drum kit, one step up from pots and pans.
Do you know what? I think it had. I think it was like a performance plus kit. So I think it was like pretty low level kids kit, but it did have a good snare because the fella in the shop couldn't find the snare drum, so he gave me a good one. It's like the guy in Cayley's. So he used to let us play on his electric drums and all that stuff. Half decent cymbals. The kit was not bad, and the snare drum was good enough to get me through teenage kicks for 3 hours.
Yeah. But that was it. And no microphone. We didn't even enter our heads to get. Which is mad, innit? When you think about it now, we didn't even think, oh, we're gonna need microphones. So I just shouted. So I think because you hadn't heard the lyrics. Really, I was probably quite nervous. So when you say, what's that song called? Like to say lightning struck. Like now I'd be like, oh, it's called this, it's called that. But back then I was like, oh, they might think I'm a bit daft, or they might think I'm a bit pretentious. So the moment Steve kind of gives some brutally horrific porn reference, I'm like, yeah, that'll do. Yeah. And so
I just think as well that was our thing, because like other people would like turn other bands and they'd have like equipment and like they'd have like things they were doing, and we would they had like practice rooms and stuff, and we were practicing in my bedroom, and we had no money apart from Bob. So like to turn up where my drums were in bin bags because I didn't have anything else, and to like basically watch you tune up with a spanner, which was hilarious. To have songs that were horrific names was just like adding to it, because it was just like use aren't important.
Yeah,
I haven't heard Lars, mate. That was kind of like just dismissing everyone. We can mess around because when we play, everyone will dig us, kind of thing.
That's it. It was that belief from the off, from that first night. That belief that just triumphed anything practical. Like, well, can you play? Can you play a barcode row? Matty, you're tuning your guitar with a spanner. Stay, you know, we just knew.
It's one of them, innit? Like, imagine trying to be anything more than half-assed. And it's just like, why would you bother starting like that?
Yeah.
You might as well start like this. It's the most basic it's going to get. But guess what? You don't have to, the bar ain't set that high. So let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Because that's all you needed. Like, cliche, the vision, the dream, whatever. It's all to come. It's all to come. So why bother putting yourself on a pedestal? Because it don't matter. It really doesn't matter. As long as you've got like someone smiling to the left, to the right of you, you're all right, you know.
So Long Too Long is a podcast written by me, Matty Lackland-Day, also starring Liam Rowlands and Steve Buckman. For more information, search So Long Too Long podcast on all socials or email us at solongtoolongpod@gmail.com. So Long Too Long is part of the Club Shipwreck network. For more information, go to www.patreon.com/clubshipwrecked. Thanks to John Gibbons and the Anfield Rap for loan of the studio.
I like playing in the dark, man.